have this opportunity was the Small Business Administration's Utah District Office. As Rob mentioned, Chris Stevers on the phone or on the call, as is Rachel Bennett, and also I see Carl Wernick is there. And there is a great staff at the Small Business Administration's district office to provide the support you need. And in this case, in giving assistance to small businesses, they have the two major loan programs that they administer. The first one is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Advance, which has been added since the CARES Act. That was the first one that came out, was introduced. The second one, which is the protection plan, now is live as of today. And we'll talk a little bit about both of those, as we will also discuss GoEd's bridge loan program, and then open it up for questions. So let's talk first about the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Payroll Protection Program. In both of those, it's important for small businesses. My recommendation is for small businesses to understand the purpose of both of those programs. And I'll invite Chris and Rachel to participate in that conversation too. But the first thing that small businesses should do is understand what is the purpose of each of those, how are they different, what are the benefits of each, because there's never been a harder time for small businesses as we have today, but there's also never been so many resources to help small businesses get through this difficult time and survive and thrive beyond it. So Chris and Rachel. Chris, are you ready? It looks like you're still muted.
How about now?
There you go.
Sorry about that. I thought I had clicked the button. Hi, Andrew, and Rob, and everybody on the call. Do you want? Are you turning over to me, Andrew, or am I just?
Yeah, just if you want to just introduce the people you have brought with you, and kind of an overview of the two SBA loan programs.
Sure thing. As introduced, I'm Chris Stever. I'm the Deputy District Director here at the Utah SBA District Office. I have with me one of our economic development specialists, Rachel Bennett. It's entirely possible that some of you already know who she is and have chatted with her in the past, as well as Carl Wernick, who's one of our lender relations specialists. And same goes for him. You never know if you've talked to him in the past as well. We're a small office, but we are out there always in the community promoting our programs. Andrew started to give sort of the overview of what we have available right now. I'm going to focus on the new programs that we've put forth in response to the coronavirus COVID-19 crisis. But we do have a suite of regular programs, which we could also talk about if there are questions on some of the regular programs. Just to echo what Andrew said, we've created these programs to support businesses through this really difficult time. The purpose is really to assist small businesses in surviving these challenges that we're having right now. So the purpose, the uses and purposes of these two programs, are to support your operations and in particular support your payroll and your ability to keep employees on board and working so that you don't. I think somebody's off mute, but hopefully everyone can still hear me. So just keep that in mind, and that'll become clear as I chat a little bit further. We have these two new programs. I put new in quotes for a second because the second is is an existing program that has received an enhancement. But the first thing I want to talk about is the economic injury disaster loan, which some of you may already be familiar with. It has been out there for a couple of weeks, at least a couple of weeks now. And these loans are, focused on your operations and being able to pay for those expenses that keep your business in operation. So we're talking about, payroll, rents, accounts payable, all those sort of operational questions. The difference would be, these aren't loans that are supposed to help you expand your business or develop a new product or anything like that. This is a direct response to keeping your doors open, keeping the lights on. The limit, the max loan is $2 million, so these loans can be up to $2 million for these purposes. And one of the really exciting dimensions of it is that we have actually developed an advance component to the EIDL loans, as we call them, economic injury disaster loans. Since that's a mouthful, we have shortened it to the acronym EIDL. So I'll try and circle back to that if people join later and don't know what I'm talking about. But for now, the economic injury loans, we're going to call that EIDL. And we have the EIDL Advance, which is basically $10,000 that we are committing to put out and get you within 3 days of applying for it. So really, really exciting. That's the $10,000 that you do not need to pay back. That is forgivable, as we say. So it really behooves you to look into applying for the EIDL program and at least starting that, because if you do not receive an EIDL loan, you can still receive the advance and receive the advance without having to pay that advance back. So I know that's a little bit small relative to the potential size of the loan at $2 million, but 10,000 hopefully will give you at least some immediate relief with bills you have to pay. Now the caveat here is that I wanted to mention is that some of you may have already applied for the EIDL loan, and that's fine. If you want to, and if you did so using one of the application processes that we had initially had you using, you need to apply using the current EIDL loan application process. That doesn't change anything with your current application. We will marry the two applications together, but that's how you apply for the advance. Now, if you haven't applied for EIDL before today, you can just go ahead and use the application that we have available, and you will be applying for both. You will have the option to apply for both at the same time. So I've now mentioned this application. Where do you go to get this application? This application can be accessed on the the SBA website. If you go to sba.gov/disaster, I'll say that again, maybe a little bit slower. SBA. Yes, Andrew?
I put a link to it in the comments.
Great. Yeah, so sba.gov/disaster, going to bring you to the disaster area, and from there you can navigate to the economic injury disaster loan page, and from there you will be able to apply directly online through that website for the EIDL program. It's I think the third iteration of the application that we've put out. It is the most streamlined and simplest and hopefully straightforward. So I encourage everybody to look into that because in particular there's that $10,000 advance that you can get whether you get the loan in the end or not. If you do get the loan, the 10,000 is sort of factored into your loan. So I don't know, you get a $100,000 loan, you already have the 10,000, you'll get 90,000 more, but the 10,000 is forgiven. You don't have to pay that part back. The rest of it you do have to pay back, and so that's still a loan, but at reasonably good terms. The whole idea is to make sure that you have the cash in order to continue your operations, pay your employees, keep the lights on, and ride out the current crisis. So I'll stop there on the EIDL loan for a moment and jump to the Paycheck Protection Program loans. So these are the two major loan programs that we have put out to support small businesses through this crisis. The PPP, as we call it, again, we have another nice acronym, is essentially an enhancement to our existing 7A loan program. So if anyone has ever received a 7A loan before, or has knowledge of that, this is an enhancement. We're using that as a vehicle to get you funds and financial relief to keep your business going. In particular, it is focused on supporting your payroll expenses and being able to keep or rehire employees if you've had to recently furlough or lay off employees. If you bring them back, these funds can be used to support bringing them back. So when I say it's an enhancement to the 7A loan program, that means that this is a guarantee program of the SBA. We guarantee the loans that your traditional lenders, banks, your credit unions, other lenders are making to you. So as opposed to the EIDL loan, which the SBA is making this loan directly to you, we are working through traditional lenders, SBA lenders in particular, to provide you these funds. So what does that mean? That means you won't see what's happening in the background, but we are guaranteeing these loans at 100%. To incent the lending institution to make these loans to you. But you get this loan from your bank or credit union or lender. One caveat there is that they have to be a participating SBA lender. So I would say, your first step in exploring the PPP loans is to talk to your lender. Are they a participating SBA lender? If you don't have a regular lender, but you know of some lenders, you can ask them, are they participating? You can also go to the SBA website at sba.gov and use a tool. I think it's called, Lender Locator or Lender Finder. But you can basically put in your zip code, and it will show you a list of participating SBA lenders that are nearest to you that you can contact. There's also a function called Lender Match that is designed to match you with lenders that are offering the products that you are interested in. So either of these ways are good paths to get to a lending institution that can help you apply to them for this PPP loan. Now, let me step back. I just launched into how to get access to the PPP program without telling you exactly what it is. But essentially, this loan is designed to support your payroll costs and other some other related types of operational costs through the next essentially 2 months. The fun part about it is that it is potentially fully forgivable, meaning if you get one of these PPP loans and you spend those funds on eligible purposes, such as payroll and related expenses, benefits, rents and utilities are also eligible. Interest payments like mortgage interest payments are also eligible. Those funds that are expended on eligible expenses are forgivable. So if you spend the entire loan value of the loan on these types of expenses, it can be entirely forgiven. Pretty neat, huh? The portion, if any portion of the loan that is not spent during this period, and I should define the period we're talking about, we're looking back to February 15th and forward to June 30th of this year. If you do not spend the entire amount on the eligible expenses, then that portion remains as not forgiven and functions as a regular loan. Now, the extra caveat to that is that we're going to defer any payments on that for 6 months. But hopefully that is not a huge portion of the loan. Hopefully most of you will be able to expend those funds for the eligible expenses and have nearly, if not all, of the loan forgiven. These loans could be up to $10 million. The size of the loan is going to be based on, looking at your previous payroll costs. So it's a little bit, focused on payroll and these very specific payroll related costs. You still are going to be able to include benefits in there. As opposed to when the expenses that you can use these funds for are a little broader, as I said, rent, utilities, interest, debt interest payments. But the size of the loan, what you can apply for is determined by looking back last year at average payroll costs to get that figure. So that's kind of the program in a nutshell. There are other details. The fees have been eliminated for the PPP. There's and this might be getting in the weeds a little bit, but in the traditional 7A loan program, we have a test called Credit Elsewhere, where we are looking to see, well, can the borrower access funds elsewhere, resources elsewhere? Do they really need this loan? We know you need this loan. That requirement has been waived. Collateral requirements have been waived. Personal guarantees have been waived. So this is really, once you start to see all the details, you kind of get the idea. We're trying to put cash in your pocket to pay people, to keep your business running with these basic operational costs. So let me say one other thing on the PPP loan. The forgivable amount may be reduced if you're not retaining your employees. Because the whole point here with the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, is to enable you to keep your employees on board and to be able to keep paying them. So if you are, if you lose employees during this period, that will limit the amount that you can have forgiven. If you have already had to lay off or furlough employees, as long as you bring employees back during the period, you won't be subject to those reductions. And your lender is going to be able to help you through some of the details of this process. Again, getting into the weeds a bit, it was only last night that the SBA issued the final rule, or as we call it, the interim final rule, to put out to especially lending institutions. Here's how we are operationalizing this program, which we are doing with as much speed and haste as possible. So as Andrew said, the program starts today. So the projected targets for getting the program up and running and having people submit applications for small businesses and including sole proprietorships. Today is day one. So you definitely, if you are thinking you are interested in this program, and I think it's worth at least being interested, talk to your lender, talk to a lender, and get the process going. I don't want to cause any panic or hysteria, but I want to encourage people that think that it is all possible that you would participate to do it as quickly as you can. If you feel like you have to get some things organized or get some more information, you're going to do what you need to do. But the total pot, if you will, what has been allocated is the 350 billion. People have heard that figure. That's been out there for a while, and that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. But there are a lot of you. There are a lot of small businesses out there, it is going to be first come, first serve, and when those funds are exhausted, they're exhausted. Now, you may have also heard some of the talking heads and folks in Congress talking about, well, what if it runs out? Well, we're going to, we're certainly going to look into re-upping and adding more. That's all remains to be done, and I'm optimistic that they would certainly do that, but it's a timing thing. So. That would come later. So you want to definitely get on this as quickly as you can and explore it, apply. There is a sample of the application form also available on the SBA website. So under the section in the SBA website for Paycheck Protection Program, you can actually pull down a copy of a sample application. And so you can see what it is that you're going to be required to provide to your lender to apply for this loan program. So I encourage you to look at that as well. So I've been talking a whole bunch. Maybe I will ask Andrew, is there anything that I haven't covered up front that you think is worth covering now? Oh, I think you're on mute, Andrew.
Okay. The one thing I would add, Chris did an amazing job, and you can tell that's why I wanted Chris to be a part of this, because you don't have that opportunity very often to be a small business owner and actually hear this from the Small Business Administration. They are a fantastic partner. The one thing I would add about the Paycheck Protection Program is that you need to get applied as quickly as you can, as Chris mentioned. But here's what I would suggest doing also. As soon as you apply, start to look for reasons of what you can, of the role that those employees can make. I've had several small businesses ask, well, why bring them back if my sales, I don't need them yet because my sales are still slow. Well, this is a great opportunity for you to define what their roles can be right now, how they can begin to help you either with research, maybe it's with some YouTube videos or some social media posts. There are things that maybe it's contacting your customers, letting them know you're there and you're able to help and people are back to work. So start to think about how you can use them to help create value for your business today so that as you move through this, you can maximize all of your resources. And then at the end, when this is over, you'll be better prepared to grow further at that point. Okay, I'll go.
Great. And one other thing I would add up front, we've gotten questions from folks about participating in both programs, and I think there's a lot of information out there and conflicting information. I've heard from people that have said, "Oh, I was told I couldn't do both," or I was told this would happen if I did both programs. So what I'm going to say about this is that you can be in both programs. can do both. The thing that we are looking to avoid is that we don't want the funds, if you're in both programs, we don't want you to use the funds for the same purpose, the same expenses. So it's double dipping, if you will. So as long as the uses of the funds from both programs are different, there's no reason you can absolutely do both. And again, your lender will help you, is going to be able to help you through that process, because you're going to need to, if you've already applied for the EIDL, you've already received the EIDL, you're going to let your lender know through the application process that you've done that. So just want to get out in front of that question. Does it make sense to go to some questions? I see we are at 9:30. I'm not sure actually how much time we have, but I purposely didn't want to go into the weeds without some guidance for what people are wanting to hear about. And frankly, I'll just preface this with, we may not have all the answers today, but I will at the end talk about some of the resources that we have to help you get answers going forward.
Chris, can I mention one thing?
Sure.
Before we open up for Q&A? I just put out there a link to the application for the GoEd's bridge loan. It's important to understand that GoEd, knowing that there's going to be some time between when you apply and when you receive the economic injury disaster loan and the Paycheck Protection Program, they wanted you to be able to continue your operations and basic have working capital for your business. So they created the bridge loan. Now the bridge loan is 60 months, 0% interest, no payments for the first 12 months. It's designed, and you'll get the money quickly. So the amounts range from $5,000 to $20,000. It's not meant to be the solution that the economic injury disaster loan and the Paycheck Protection Program are, but they are designed to help give you working capital that you can begin to use to keep your business there. Okay.
Super.
And I also would suggest that you use the website coronavirus.utah.gov. There are links there to local resources, state resources, and federal resources that will help your business.
And Andrew, I'll go over some other links at the end of the webinar.
Hey.
So the first question is regarding the paycheck protection. It says, what I haven't understood is they list sole proprietors in one category and independent contractors and self-employed in another category. What if you are self-employed and work as an independent contractor for a number of different companies? Would you file everything through your business as a sole proprietor?
You are going to, if you're an independent contractor, you have to apply yourself. And actually, that's a great first question, because we've gotten this before from business owners that are utilizing independent contractors as opposed to employees. So, and the question is, well, I don't have employees, or I think of my independent contractors as employees, but the fact is they are independent contractors. So the small business that is using independent contractors isn't going to be using their independent contractors as employees. They need to have employee payroll expenses, but those independent contractors can be supported by applying themselves. Now, and actually another reason that's a great question is that there are 2 start dates for taking the PPP applications. Today is the first big date, and that is for small businesses and sole proprietorships. Then on April 10th, other categories of the self-employed, in particular independent contractors, are going to be able to start applying for the PPP. So keep those 2 dates in mind. if if there's any question about oh, my situation, can I apply today or not? Again, your lending institution is going to be able to tell you, yeah, we can take your application today. No, we're going to need to wait until the 10th. But that just underscores the guidance to start talking to your lenders as soon as possible to get the process moving.
So then if they're a small business, they of just 1099s, they can't apply. The 1099 self-contractors would have to apply, correct?
Correct.
Well, I think they could apply themselves, like say they're working in the company, they could probably apply on their own behalf, but they wouldn't be able to include independent contractors in their payroll calculations. Does that make sense? Because they're, it's no different than the self-employed person that has nobody working for them, employees or independent contractors. They are still eligible to apply, but it's just a small business that is either solely or in part relying on independent contractors. They just wouldn't include those folks in the payroll calculation. I know it's easy to think of your independent contractors as employees, but the fact that you're referring to them as independent contractors underscores the fact that that they're not employees and can't be included. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, so we've had someone on the call that has already filed everything through his business as a sole proprietor, but he's also an independent self-contractor. So should he apply today and next week, or how would that work?
That's an interesting question. That would be a question I would pose to your lender to see, because again, you're not going to be able to apply for the same purposes. I mean, to say just intuitively, it should make sense. We're not allowing you to use both the EIDL and the PPP for the same purpose, the same expenses. It would be the same. Like you couldn't apply as a sole proprietor and then apply as an independent contractor for your earnings. You can only get you can only use your earnings once. That makes sense. And if you can qualify as a sole proprietor and apply today, that's what you're going to want to do. You're not going to want to wait till the 10th.
So then we've had a lot of people also ask that they've applied for the economic injury disaster loan more than 2 days ago or on March 29th. So they're wondering if they need to reapply or if they have to get the refund.
Okay, there was a little background noise, but I think the question was, there are folks that have already applied for EIDL, for the economic injury disaster loan, but have not received it's been more than 3 days and they have not received the advance.
Correct.
So 2 things. One, make sure that you have applied through the new system, which was made available last Monday. So if you applied during, so there was an initial online application. It was more extensive. There were attachments that needed to be uploaded. We stopped using that and we moved to a system where you simply uploaded all the documents. That was really only open for a few days last week. And then Monday, the new online where you're putting your information in online again, that's the one that you have to use. So if you've used one of those previous systems, most likely, so if you've applied last week before Monday this week, you likely used the old system. And if you haven't gone in and applied again through the new system, it doesn't know you want the advance. Now, I know that sounds annoyingly duplicative. Like, what do you mean I have to apply twice? Well, there's just no other way. I mean, this is the mechanism to get you to apply for the advance, is using the current EIDL application. So it's one application for both, just the EIDL and the advance. So that might be one reason. If you have applied through the new system this week and it's been more than 3 days, that is really disappointing. And the next step that you're going to want to take is you're going to want to call the disaster customer service, the SBA Disaster Group customer service line. And that was part of some of the contact information I wanted to make sure that people had today. If you don't have it, there's
Rachel listed it. Rachel listed it earlier, and we can copy and put that.
Great.
It's too.
Great. So just for anybody that is just writing it down here, I'll just say the phone number is 800-659-2955, and hopefully you can find it if through the system. It's also the email address is disaster customer service, all one word, no spaces, at sba.gov. And I will say the next question might be, hey, I've heard, or I actually was trying to reach them, and it took an hour, it took 2 hours to get through, or I couldn't get through. I will be upfront and admit that in the beginning, the customer service lines were overloaded. This week, we have put thousands more agents and continue to put more agents on that customer service line. I called it just to test it because I was told this and I wanted to see it before I believed it. And I called on Wednesday and I got through like that. So I hope, it is sincerely my hope that they have solved that wait time issue and that when you call, you will get through to a person that can help you. They have divided it into 2 tiers. So there's an initial tier that is handling the more, slightly more general or easier questions. And they have a second tier that is reserved for the really complicated questions so that we are able to cycle through all the calls as they come in and eliminate wait times. But back to the initial point, if you haven't received that advance and you have applied for it, you need to call that line and ask for a status. What is going on? Give them, there's some identifying information on that EIDL loan. You'll just need to provide that. They should be able to give you an update. But that is what we are, being told. That is certainly the goal, and definitely reach out and find out what's going on.
So there's no online way to check the status of your application. You'd have to call the number.
That is my understanding. That is my understanding. They're used so and that's actually great. If I could just take 1 second to say there used to be this. I mean, the page that we had up last, as late as last week for applying for the EIDL was this page with 3 circles on it, and one of them was check eligibility, which is you don't ever need to go to that for the EIDL because everything is eligible. And I won't even go into why we had such a staged eligibility process, but all of Utah is eligible. The center circle was apply for the EIDL. Now, the last time I checked, that circle was taking you to the wrong page. And so that, don't expect to get to the online version on that circle. And then there's a third circle that was check your application. My understanding is that is not checking the current system for your status. You need to call the disaster customer service line.
Perfect. And then the 10,000 advance for EIDL loans, is that an up to amount or is the 10,000 automatic?
I think technically it's an up to amount, but I think I can't imagine that it's really going to be any less than that.
Okay. And then someone would like to know if you know what's included in calculating the average monthly payroll costs and what is excluded.
So it's really specifically payroll Expenses. Your lender, this is again a place where your lender is going to be able to give you the best advice on what is included. I can tell you things like, hold on, it's a little bit of a list. So salary, wages, commission, similar compensation, payment of cash tips equivalent, vacation, healthcare benefits, like insurance premiums, retirement benefits. These type of things are what's going to be included. But again, I would work with your lender on making that calculation. The actual expenditures then are a little bit different. It's for those payroll expenses, but then also expands to, as I said, like rent, utilities, debt payments on existing debt, and those type of things. Hopefully that made sense.
And do you know if it's gross salary for payroll?
That's a great question. I'm not sure.
In my calculation,
And I apologize if I end up giving you partial answers or incomplete answers. I want to make sure that I'm only providing information that is absolutely solid. A lot of the information is still coming out and being refined. As I said, it was only yesterday that the SBA was able to publish the rule in the Federal Register. So there's more guidance that will be coming, especially guidance to the lenders to be able to help borrowers through this process.
So, and then, Andrew, do you have something to add?
No, I was just going to say, I have a small business, and as I applied, I used my gross salary that came from my payroll reports.
Perfect.
I used that in order to calculate the 2.5 times to know what I was working with.
And then with that, Andrew, I don't know if you know this, the $100,000 employee salary cap. Yep. The person asked, does that mean it's up to $100,000 of that person's salary can be put into your calculation, or is anyone calculating it?
You can't count any salary over $100,000 per year, prorated down to a month. So if you have somebody that is making over $100,000 per year, that's all you can include in their salary in the calculation.
Okay. And then someone asked a question that their business, it has to be closed until May. Can they apply for the PPP loan and defer accessing the loan until they're allowed to be to open again?
I don't think so. The issue is that the expenses are going to have to be the uses of the funds have to be used within this period, the covered period, February 15th to June 30th. So to Andrew's point, and part of this is, especially, is relevant because we want folks to keep their people on while they're at reduced activity levels. If your business has had to shut the door, and thus you're having trouble paying your people because you're not bringing in any revenue, that's exactly why we want to get you this money so that you can keep your folks on and pay them. And to Andrew's point, what else can, if it's not what they're regularly doing, what else can they do to support the business during that period? So that June 30th is pretty much the end date for making the eligible expenditures with the funds. So and to be sure, if you don't use an equivalent amount of your loan towards these eligible expenses, that's okay. That's the portion that won't be able to be forgiven and will continue on as the loan balance. Does that make sense? I know that's not a.
Yeah. So what about, we have a couple of businesses, there's lots of businesses that are mandated to be closed from health departments, local health orders. If they're not allowed to open before June, are they still eligible for those loans? If their employees are applying for unemployment, or how would them paying back that loan work as well if, let's say, some of the health orders get extended into past that cutoff date?
Rob, I just mentioned, Chris, if it's okay.
Sure.
Even though they're mandated to close, as Chris and I both have mentioned, they may have a physical presence that has to close, a brick and mortar, but you also have the opportunity to employ those people from their homes, teleworking. And there's a number of things. And if a business owner has questions about what can those employees do while the business is closed, please contact the Small Business Development Center near you, a SCORE mentor, or the Women's Business Center, and we can help you work through that and help you look at what kind of strategy can I use now so that when I do open, when that mandate is lifted and I do open, I'm ready to take advantage of that opportunity.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. And then for determining the eligible cost for the PPP loan, would you use first quarter 2020 or 2019 payroll?
For the
PPP loan.
for determining the forgivable amount, it's expenses during the covered period, February 15th to June 30th. So it's the payroll during that time. It's the rent, utilities, the debt payments, these specific expenses that are eligible, and they are paid during that time. Does that make sense? Is that like, it's not a give us your first and second quarter payroll. It's a specific period that's been defined. And I get, and again, just back to that earlier answer, I mean, I know it's going to be tough if, if your regular operation, your public facing operation is closed until June 1st, and we're saying, well, you can only use expenses through, June 30th. That's, back to Andrew's point. And that was a great point. I was planning to make it later, but I'm glad Andrew brought it up now. Contact your local SBDC, your Women's Business Center, SCORE mentors, and I see that Rachel has been putting up the contact information for those organizations. But this is what they do. One of the things that they do, and they're amazing at it. Basic business counseling. They're going to be able to help you figure out those questions for sure. So I really want to encourage you to reach out to those guys and get the assistance you need.
And then, are you required to pay your payroll taxes on the paychecks if you're using the PPP funds to pay your employees?
As far as I know, we're not changing how your payroll works. But that may be, again, a question for your lender as you go through the process, figuring out how you're going to manage that.
Perfect. And then there's someone that has an LLC and they have rental properties, so they don't have any employees except themselves. Would they qualify for either the economic injury disaster loan or the PPP loan?
So if they, are working in the business, I think it's a good chance that their compensation is going to, as a sole proprietor, or they only have the one of them. They have earnings in the business. That's likely gonna be covered. If they have rents and utilities, Those are the things that are going to be covered. Debts, like if they, have these properties and they're making mortgage payments, those I believe are covered as uses of the funds. It does, and like I said, I mean, I hate to say, it's a mismatch. It's not really a mismatch because the focus really is, first and foremost on employees and making sure that, not only are businesses open, but that they're supporting, supporting their employees, that the calculation of the loan size is based on those payroll expenses, as opposed to including some of the additional expenses that will be eligible when you're calculating the forgiveness amount. So it sounds like someone in that particular case, they might not be able to be eligible for quite as high a total loan amount, but they're going to have more options for what they can, the expenses that will be eligible for forgiveness when they're actually making those expenses. Hopefully that made sense.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah, Carl?
May I interject?
You do.
So I think that the rental companies are probably going to be eligible for the EIDL loans, but not necessarily for the Paycheck Protection Program, because they're a passive type business. But I think under EIDL they're going to be eligible for SBA assistance. The other kind of problem with a passive business like that only has one one individual that might be getting a paycheck out of from that business is the amount that he gets or she gets is going to be pretty limited, because the very roughly calculated, it's going to be equivalent to what the average salary would be over a 10-week period. So that would be pretty limiting. And I also wanted to mention that in order for the Paycheck Protection loan to be fully forgiven, at least 75% of those loan proceeds have to be used to satisfy or to pay some kind of payroll. So one of those payroll expenses. Up to 25% of the loan amount can be used for things like the lease expenses, for interest portion of mortgage debt, and for any interest portion of a debt that was incurred prior to February 15th, and also utility expenses. But if you exceed, if those expenses exceed 25%, there's going to be some portion of that debt that's not going to be forgiven. So businesses want to make sure that they're using 75% of their of those funds for some kind of payroll expense. So in that way, they're going to be fully forgiven.
Thank you. What about for those? Go ahead, Chris.
Well, yeah, and I just wanted to follow that up quickly with, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, this advice is to ensure that you can maximize the forgivable portion of the loan. But if you're not able to get the entire loan forgiven, it's still a loan, and you still have favorable terms. Like I said, there's a deferment, a 6-month deferment on payments. So I'm hoping that people won't be scared off. It's like, oh my God, I can't get the whole thing forgiven. It's still a pretty good program, pretty good way to get funds that you need to operate.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Do you have to spend those funds in the first 8 weeks to be forgiven, or by June 30th?
My understanding is June 30th. The period that these funds are expended is February 15th to June 30th.
Perfect. And then also, what if, I know for the economic injury loan, you have to show that you've had been impacted by the disaster. What if, let's say you have a supply chain and you know that that's going to be impacted in the next few weeks, but you haven't had any impact as of now. Can you apply for the loan based off of future impacts?
I believe so, yes. Carl, do you have any perspective on that? I'm pretty sure it's a projection.
Yeah, when we were so in the conference call about 2 weeks ago, they mentioned that they were going to determine the amount of the EIDL loan based on what the anticipated cash flow shortfall was going to be over the next 6 months. So if the shortfall is going to appear in the next 6 months, then yeah, that's how they're going to calculate it, even if there's not an immediate impact right now.
I'll just add one thing too. This is Andrew. We have a client who just hadn't had an impact yet, but just lost their #1 customer. And so in their description of the economic injury, that's what they put, because they know that may not have been an impact in March, but it will definitely be an impact in April and May.
Perfect. So it looks like we are about out of time. So do any of the presenters have any closing remarks they'd like to make?
I would just like to thank Chris and Rachel and Carl for participating. It's very unusual to have that opportunity that the businesses have had today, because oftentimes there is miscommunication, there's misunderstanding about what these programs are. So I think that the value to them today is a wealth of knowledge for them to move forward. But again, understand that there is a purpose behind each of these sources of capital for your business. Understand what they're designed, how they're designed to help you, and use them for that purpose. You can't double dip between EIDL and PPP, but they're designed, again, that's not going to give you the maximum benefit that you need. Also, if you haven't been impacted by the coronavirus, as some businesses haven't, and you need capital to grow, contact your lender about your normal SBA lending opportunities.
Thank you, Andrew.
Great point. Thanks, Andrew. I would just like to close by 2 things. Just saying, encouraging everybody, please look into these programs. Please get all the information you need to make a decision on applying, but do it quickly. These are resources that are available to you, should be available to you, and that you should be able to get fairly quickly. And as Andrew pointed out earlier, if you need help figuring out which programs, how operational things about your business, contact the SBDCs, the Women's Business Centers, SCORE. They're there to help and can help you through navigating the larger picture and process. Technical questions, I would encourage you to liberally make use of the resources that are available. Call us in the district office. I can't remember if it's been put into the comments or flashed on the screen, but we have several channels that you can get in touch with us. You can call or email the Utah District Office directly. Our main line is 801-524-3209. If you Google us, Utah SBA office, you're going to get to our contact information. But you can also email us directly at Utah General, all one word, no spaces, at sba.gov. We have put into place what we call the rapid response team. We've gathered resources from a lot of different agencies and brought them all together as a team to support our being able to get you answers quickly. And so you can contact that team directly by going to their a web form that they have set up, which is coronavirus coronavirus.utah.gov/business. I'll say that again, coronavirus.utah.gov/business. From that page, there's a link called Federal Resources. You just click on that. That shoots you down halfway down the page to a button that is Submit Inquiry. You click on that button, and there's a web form. You put in your information, your questions, and that goes directly to this new team. And we are actually are able to send a tremendous number of inquiries to this team. We are only about 10 people in the Utah District office. This team is greatly expanding our local resources here to be able to respond to your questions. And as I said before, especially the technical questions about the applications, you can talk to your lender, but reaching out to the office, the SBA Office of Disaster Assistance Customer Service, email and phone line, they have also ramped up their ability to taking questions, inquiries, and get you answers as quickly as possible. So utilize these resources, and we hope that we can get you through this process as quickly as possible.
Is there any way that I can ask something very quick?
So, Carlos, we're actually out of time, but if you email me, I'll get that to them. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Hopefully this has been informative and helpful. We're all in this together. I'm going to go through and read all the emails, all the questions, and make sure that we have an email that has answers to all those questions. And then also we'll send that out, and we'll send all the contact information for the different numbers and the different things we've talked about. I know it's really helpful to talk to a person, a live person. So please feel free to reach out to myself, reach out to Andrew. We've created the Northern Utah Economic Response Team between Davis and Weber County. So go to that website. Feel free to contact anybody on that. It's the 2 counties, the 2 chambers. There's a lot of good resources there. There's also good resources on both the counties and the chambers websites. So thanks again for all the great questions and comments. And please let me know